Hello and welcome to History Hack, and you will notice I am neither Alex or Alina. I'm Paul Woodadge, and what we're doing today is we are turning the spotlight on the two girls and asking them about how they got involved in History Hack. So, good evening, Alex and Alina.
This is weird.
Very weird.
But not unpleasant.
It is a bit weird, yeah, but no, honestly, you've done so many shows now, and you talk about your guests and you big them up and you talk about what they have achieved, but you don't talk about yourselves. And so this is a chance for your listeners to find out a little bit more about you two. And so my first question, very simply, is how the hell did you two meet?
Oh, I don't know if you want to... Alex, do you want to start this one?
I can't even remember.
Oh, I know.
Then.
Right. Okay. I stalked you on Twitter.
Did you?
I did, actually.
Oh.
It was long before we met. I was meant to come down to, what was it? What's the festival? Why has my mind gone blank?
Chalk Valley.
Chalk Valley. It was a couple of years ago. And we missed each other.
Did we?
We did. See, this is how good your memory is. We missed each other. And then we got chatting on Twitter and Facebook, and somebody else introduced us, and I don't know, it just kind of escalated from there, really.
I don't remember anything about the how, but I do remember that within 10 minutes, like losers, we were finishing each other's sentences like an old married couple. And it was
married couple.
Yeah, we were inside each other's brains instantly. Like on a daily basis, I will screenshot something I've seen that I like and send it to Alina, just as she is screenshotting and sending the same thing to me. It's a bit creepy. Yeah. She sends me messages going, "Get out of my fucking brain!"
Like,
so, I mean, those watching, listening, we kind of know the story that the History Hack was born out of, COVID-19, lockdown, frustrations and things, but it's become so much more than that. But how and when did you have the idea, and how did you just set about doing your first show? I mean, it was just sort of contacting mates, I guess, to begin with, wasn't it?
Anyone you'd ever done a favour for.
Yeah.
Begging. It's
well, actually what it did, it started off with I actually got repatriated back from Poland, and I got stuck in quarantine. I sent Alex a message. I was like, I'm really fucking bored. Do you want to come on a podcast and do some shit? And she's like, oh my God, let's do this. And it just exploded.
Yeah. That was 2 days before the first show went out. You had already lined up Guy Walters and Luke Daly-Groves to do the first one.
Yeah.
And 300 and nearly 350 we've recorded now, because we're ahead now. Episodes later, probably about 3 major rows and a 50 dozen small spats. 400 odd guests. No, must be more than 400, because you factor in the ones that have had huge groups on and stuff. So yeah, it's just, I don't really know. I can't even remember. So the first week you had Guy and Luke lined up, and for the life of me I can't remember anything else, but I do remember that out of nowhere you sent a grovelly stalker message to Mary Beard, and she just went, yeah, what the hell? And that was it, really, because from then on, I had asked James Holland and Dan Snow and Susanna Lipscomb and people like that, and they had said sure. So within the first 2-3 weeks, we had quite a few of the TV names on, didn't we? And then it kind of, when I sent a weird, creepy, grovelly message to Sean Bean's agent, and Sean Bean, who hates technology, went, yeah, I'm bored, why not? I'll do a podcast. And then that was it, really, wasn't it?
Just rolled from there. That was I think.
And then some idiot with a flat cap came along and went, let's get together 30 odd band of brothers and nutcases in one room. No, actually what you said was, if we can get 5 or 6, it'll be a great little podcast. And a month later, after Woody working his nuts off, we had 25 cast members, a pile of relatives of Easy Company, writers, and a 6-part series that went a bit mental.
Thanks, Woody.
That was epic.
No problem. I mean, I think went a bit mental has been really kind of the buzz phrase for what you've been achieving this year. And from the point of view of a listener and an occasional participant, it looks as if you've had this sort of plan that you've phased in stage by stage. But I can sense, because I'm doing the same thing myself, it's just been a random series of connected incidents that make it look like you've been planning what you're doing, but actually it's been lots and lots of happy accidents, isn't it? I suppose.
There's no plan. There's no
Well, we kind. There is no plan, but there kind of is a plan in a way.
There's no strategy. There's no overarching strategy.
Yeah.
There are now tactics to getting enough of them recorded and doing it in blocks so that we don't kill each other or go crazy and stuff. But no, there's no overarching. I can't tell you how many messages we've had from people starting podcasts saying, "Oh, your strategy's amazing, how you've done it, and I can't believe you did this, and how did you go about planning it, and can you help me plan mine?" It's like, I'm really sorry, dude, but we are as clueless as you are.
We're still clueless, like how many months later.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't appear to sort of have any rules in the sense that you cover anything within the historical realm, be it modern, ancient, fantasy, ghosts, haunted, real events, conspiracy theories. You have tackled everything, which means you have an unlimited amount of resources and guests you can bring in. But I mean, how do you decide where to go? What kind of rules do you have for getting people onto the show?
Alex has rules for me.
so now, because it did, I mean, we nearly did like a take that / One Direction and went our separate ways and stuff. I was getting towards the point where we might have told each other to get stuffed, I think. And we sort of divided out. So Alina does everything pre-recording and I do everything post-recording. But no, there are no rules. I mean, so now we seem to have made contact with, or they've made contact with us. Most of the major publishers will now send a message saying, "I've got this book coming out. Can we have so-and-so on the show? Would you like to talk to them?" Etc., etc., which is great at that end of it. But at the other end of it, both of us clocked a profile the other day where a guy said that his speciality was sinkholes in Paris, and we were like, "I've got to have that on." I don't know who he is. I've never heard of him. His name's Ian Boyd, and he was amazing. But yeah, sinkholes in Paris. Who doesn't want to chuckle about that for half an hour? It turns out that when they were digging out all the tunnels underneath, bits of Paris would just disappear in a big hole. Which is cool.
The medieval one, which I sent Alex a message. I was like, dude, I can't really figure this shit out. Like, what is this person talking about? I have no idea what... And Alex picks up the phone, she reads it, she goes, dude, that's medieval zombies. Yeah. It's medieval.
It was a very wordy sort of outline of Paulina's thesis, wasn't it? And I was like, dude, I'm seeing the word undead. I think she does medieval zombies. So yeah, that's coming up on New Year's Eve. So no, there are no rules. We don't care. And also as well, so one of our biggest hits so far is Colin Fisher, who's about to crop up for the third time now. And he's not a writer. He's not a TV person. He's not a historian. He's not a advanced degree researcher. He's just an expat who moved to Spain and fell in love with the history. And when he talks about the history, it makes you fall in love with the history. And he's done he did Spanish Civil War one with us, and he did Don Quixote, and now he's coming back to do Guernica, which he went away because he'd wanted to read on it and because Alina was obsessed with having a podcast on it and just researched the stuff. And he's brilliant. So no, there are no rules. And it's like saying, "Oh, we'll take anyone." If you are passionate and you've got something to say, then get in touch, because
that to me is what accessible. You're doing. You're bringing in people from a wide area. And I was reading about a podcast, a very famous podcast, and they have very strict rules. Only PhD people, only people with a certain amount of following. They must follow a script, and it all sounded a very contrived and very. And making something that's intrinsically easy actually very difficult, because if you've got an interest in a subject and you can talk about it, communicate about it, then surely there's a platform for it. And you're both very good at bringing out the humor of people and also just making it accessible for the average listener, because I'm a World War II guy, so I kind of select the World War II podcast first, but then I kind of dip into the other ones as well, and I find myself being interested in something I'm not naturally interested in, but if you ask the right questions and the person is dynamic, I find myself interested in that subject. And that's a skill that I don't think you can create that if it isn't there. And you do both do that very, very well. And as a listener, that is something that I think people notice about what you're doing.
I think we learned, didn't we, Alina, very quickly
Yeah.
that we were a bit worried about, oh, do we put that on and do we put that on and do we put that on in the first few weeks? And then we realised that I mean, obviously the big names with the huge followings got more listeners, but actually nothing bombed. People were willing to give our podcast and the way it was put out half an hour on pretty much anything. It's only half an hour, see what this person's got to say. I can always turn it off if I don't like it. And some of them, you can see on some of the metrics on Apple Podcasts and things, the ones that people switch off a bit earlier and they maybe don't listen to the end, and that's fine. But generally, people will give anything a go, which made us a lot more confident to go, oh my God, sinkholes, I want it.
Yeah. And really, really random stuff. And we want everybody to come. I mean, we had a master's student on a couple of weeks. Oh, it was last week when we were recording. And the guy was really great. You know, we don't care if you're a historian, non-historian. If you've got something really interesting to say, then contact us, get on board. I mean, come on. We love all aspects of history.
That's great that some podcasts have them. I mean, I'm guessing that I don't know what podcast you're referring to. I'm going to ask you and we're not recording anymore. But I'm guessing that podcast is where the people go that give us 1-star reviews because we drop the F-bomb and some of our guests swear and we laugh at things like Carolina Vansbuck's appendix exploding and stuff. But we wanted to create a non-stuffy environment for people who love history. And the point is that history is fun. History is not just PhD crap and minutiae and people arguing with big words. It is fun. I mean, what's not fun about that story that come off on Down the Pub a few weeks ago about the dwarf falling out of a window and killing someone on the street below? That was hilarious. History is fun. There is fun stuff all over history because humanity is intrinsically funny. And yes, sometimes we laugh at people's misfortune and we're a bit inappropriate. But I mean, one thing that astounds me is that consistently, no matter how silly it gets, the Down the Pub is one of the most downloaded things we do. People love it. It doesn't matter how nonsensical it gets. Even when we were just batting war films around, that was huge, that one.
And it was the Down the Pub segment that really got the big shout out on the Gabby Roslin breakfast show, whatever it was. You sent me the link to, and
on Sunday.
They enjoyed that, just as it says, being down a pub with your mates, listen to them bullshit. And I think there's something very accessible about that. And
because we can't go down a pub and do that at the moment.
Well, exactly. But of course, it's more than just that. There is this real serious historical undertone to it, in that the people conveying information have researched their subjects. They do know what they're talking about. It isn't just amateurs in the sense that people who don't know, that they do know their subjects, and therefore it is a value to people who are studying history. It's not just a laugh. It is a laugh, but you're learning at the same time, which is a win-win.
Yeah, people should enjoy history. The best things we get are when people say, you've just made me spit my coffee out on the tube, or I've just laughed to myself on the bus and everyone thinks I'm mad. Because this year has been shit, and if you can't laugh at something, what can you do?
Well, I got contacted by a couple of academics, funnily enough, a couple that were on our show as well. And they've said that they've passed on not just to the faculty at the university, but they've passed on our podcast to students as well to get them more interested in the various different subjects that we're using, which is amazing. So we're not just tapping the general public, we're getting noticed by academia as well.
And I think as well, one thing that we're trying to do now is, I think History Hack could be a really positive brand for history and not just about me and Alina talking all the time. And so we've launched 2 mini segments. I mean, Alina's already had pole position, and that we've sort of settled on that being the third Thursday of every month now, because she's always wanted to put more Polish history into English language. And I think it's really valid because she's Polish, and if she can't and she owns half the podcast, then who can? We also have got Matt Bone, because sometimes maybe we aren't hardcore enough, we aren't techie enough. So Matt Bone is doing a once a month World War II aviation thing, which is a little bit more involved and a little bit more, even more nerdy than us, and people love it. And then likewise, we have picked up through doing the Sharp things quite a big Napoleonic following, people that are into that. So Zach and Marcus, they deserve their own spot. They've put loads of work into History Hack with the pub shows and things, and so they have their own once a month now to talk about. I think what they're going to do is use events and scenes from Sharp and take them into real history and talk about. I think the first one, so they did Wellington after Waterloo first, and the next one is going to be about guerrilla warfare in the Peninsular War, which should be really interesting. So, yeah, I like that. I mean, and Woody, you're part of the team. You always have been ever since Band of Brothers.
But the thing is, what you're saying about bringing other people involved is also that you two are putting an extraordinary amount of time into this. And I know, because I'm doing a similar thing, just how quickly a day can go when you're just doing emails here and there and you're doing a bit of research for that and the prep. I mean, just reading the books, reading the notes, going on Google, thinking up questions, because you don't just ask the same questions to each guest of, when did you get started? How did you start your research? What did you find out that was interesting?
We've really made a point of not doing that, Woody. Like, if you noticed that we had Frank McDonough on, and instead of, and he was reticent because he's like, oh, another interview. But we just said, all right, you pick it. You pick what you want to talk about from your book. We're not going to ask you the same crap everyone else is going to ask you. Tell us what you want to do. And he said, well, I'm going to talk about 5 themes that are really important to me in this book. And that's what he did. I think that way you draw, and it really drew, he was passionate about it in that interview. You couldn't shut him up. It was great. So
and then I had him a few days later, and I then had to try and think of something slightly different to do, because he gave the link to your show. Oh God, now I've got to ask it. How can I ask the same questions, because they're really good, without making it sound like I've copied your questions? But
you can copy us anytime, Woody. You're special.
Thank you. I'm special with a capital S.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I mean, the reason we're doing this show is because people love what you're doing, and I think they do intrinsically know that it takes a lot of effort. But at the same time, I think they could do with being reminded of that. And at this point now, a year in, whatever it's been, what are the next stages, and what do you need help with? How to take it to the next level? Because that's the thing is, it's going to come down at some point to finances, isn't it? It's going to come down to...
Of course. It's going to come down to the world opening up again and us having to have a reality check about how much time we can spend in front of it. I mean, what we've got it down to is that it essentially takes probably by the time, so the actual recording takes a week of every month, slightly more. And then, of course, Alina has to prep all the interviews and the people. Some people are fine doing their own prep. Some need a 2-hour call with her because they're nervous and they don't know, they've never done a podcast before. And then mine, of course, is the editing and the posting. And obviously, I will get to this in a minute, and we'll talk about Steve, who's done the branding for us. But essentially, we need to not work to be able to maintain this level of effort for those 2 weeks, and that's not viable at the moment. So, and we have some Podbean patron thing, so that's like their own in-house Patreon, and we have Patreon, and we don't lose money doing History Hack. People's kind donations fund sort of the advanced Zoom account, the advanced Podbean account, an advanced internet connection at my house, because we just couldn't subsist, could we, Alina, with more than 2 or 3 people on a recording without having like the most epic internet that BT offer. So the money's pretty much gone as it goes. Alina's on a 5-year-old laptop. Mine's getting quite old. It just, it's just, I mean, it was fun, and it was budget, and it was like people never really, apart from a couple of snotty people, never really held against us that sort of slightly dodgy sound or whatever, because it's like, dude, it's a pandemic and they're churning out 7 a week. Give them a break, which was cool. But to take it to the next level of professionalism, I think would be really good.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this other podcast that I will tell you about offline, he broke down the amount of people involved in it, and it was like 8 researchers and so this, and a production team of this and a production team of that, and they spread out that work. A research assistant does the prep call with the person, the research assistant does the script and does this, and then someone else goes and ways and edits it and uploads it and makes it available.
I think I know which one you're talking about now. Yeah, and I think I saw that.
The thing is, if you're the listener and you listen to one of their podcasts and your podcast, you're hearing exactly the same thing. You're hearing people who know what they're talking about having a discussion about something historical, except in your case, a lot less people have got involved in it. And you're not getting the cash. So how can people help? What would be the dream thing that could happen to you over the next few weeks? I mean, obviously, someone millionaire coming up and saying, "I'd like to sponsor you," would be good, wouldn't it?
It would. Sponsorship would be amazing, and it would enable us to go turn down the slightly bonkers adverts. I can't remember. There was something very weird that came up, and they pay peanuts, but every now and again someone comes up on Patreon and on Podbean and does an ad with us, and at the moment we accept them because it's a few extra pennies. It'd be nice to just say no thanks to the weird hemorrhoid cream advert at the beginning of the podcast, I guess. Essentially, Alina and I need to make half a wage each off of it, don't we, if we're going to carry on doing 2 weeks of every, and then it would be like, so Steve, who is amazing, and we didn't know him before, he just sent us the first cartoon as a, girls, I've been loving this, here's a present. And from that, it's kind of exploded into the fact that he has fully branded History Hack, and without sort of any planning for it and without any notion of doing it, he has created a brand that is completely different to any other history podcast out there. And to the point that, yeah.
I mean, they weren't bad at the beginning. Don't get me wrong, Steve, if you're listening, but there's a style that has evolved with it, and the level of detail and the matching of the cartoon to the guest and the show and the theme has got better and better and better.
It has, and he's done every bit of it for nothing. Absolutely nothing. So it would be nice to pay Steve. Likewise with Matt and Marcus and Zach. I mean, they do one a month, but it would be nice if they weren't doing it for absolutely nothing. I guess, go on.
So I really want to add in here that both Alex and I not only work full time. You know, Alex is writing a book, research, a Great Wall Group, everything else on top of that. I work full time. I teach full time. And I need to say thank you, Alex, very much so, for working around my schedule. And we actually end up recording around my schedule. So she has to give up and be more flexible just to accommodate my schedule, basically. So thank you so much for doing that, because it's the only way we're going to get it done.
I nominate you two as the soppiest love story tomorrow in history. the unrequited love story.
No, because by the time this airs, you will realise that that's exactly what Alina did. She's planned that. Okay. She's not going to reveal the names to the end, but you must come on that one. You should come, because it's going to be a laugh. I know that
I like you, am just crazy shit busy all the time with stuff. And anyway, but you know, so the sad thing about, I don't mean sad, but what you're doing is that if you do end up having to do less because you've got to go into the real world and pay the bills, is that the professional outfits will then in a way build on what you've done, and that would be an absolute tragedy, because you've built a way of doing things, you've built a brand, you've built a market, and you've brought people in who wouldn't normally do podcasts. And if you don't carry on doing it, someone will just nick the idea, put money into it, and do it bigger and better, and leave you beside, that side of the road somewhere. And that would just be tragic for everyone, the 350,000 people who've downloaded your shows. If you don't carry on doing it, then the history world has lost a really great asset.
I think one thing we've been
say that about yourselves, and that's exactly why we're doing this, because you are very gracious and unassuming about what you do and how you approach it, and you're very self-effacing. Alina, you put yourself down all the time, and you have no reason to put yourself down all the time. You both know your subject. You're very good at what you do, and for that reason, if I can be in any way part of keeping this going, and the people listening to this can be part of keeping you going and pushing you forward, then that has been a good thing. So this is me, Paul Woodadge, as your friend, saying to people watching this, listening to this, for goodness sake, have a bit of a thought about how you can help, what you can do to take this to the next level in terms of investment or something, or equipment or sponsorship, because there is something here that needs to be continued. It's a very special thing you've created, you two.
I think one thing that I've loved that we've managed to achieve in sort of the last 3 months of it is that at the beginning we were very much like, we would try and go for the biggest names we could get, and everybody had a book out, and now it doesn't matter. If we like someone's subject and we like them and we like the way they talk about the subject, we don't give a crap if they've not got a book deal. We don't give a crap if they've not finished studying. We don't care. We don't need their if they've only got 200 followers, doesn't matter, because we got our own followers now, which means that we can sell them to an existing following, and we don't need their following, which is great because it means we have the freedom to just talk to anyone we want, which I love about this. I keep bringing up Ian and sinkholes, but that was brilliant. We literally spent just over half an hour talking about the fact that in the 18th century, wherever you are in Paris, you had to be wary of the fact that the ground might disappear beneath you. And they saw it as like an act of God. And like, whoever thought that that was a thing?
Well, that is the thing, again, without repeating ourselves. You have brought people to your audiences that wouldn't get booked by the bigger people. And therefore, you've brought stories to people that wouldn't have seen the light of day had you not given them that platform to do things. Because there is that sense of it's like when the big movie comes out and Tom Hanks and whoever it is goes and sits in a hotel in London somewhere, and Sky News go in for 5 minutes, and then BBC go in for 5 minutes, and then so-and-so, and they just churn out all those PR bits. And you don't come across in that way, and that's important that you're giving people, in a sense, if to carry on that analogy, you're allowing the camera person to give their version as well, and the guy who brings the coffees for the actors when it's cold. You're making it accessible to everybody, not just the top stars, and that is very important that you're continuing that way. So, I mean, to just go a bit more trivial, we talked about what you need to help to push you forward. During the course of the show, you must have had some absolute burst out laughing moments and some moments of complete hilarity and some complete curveballs that came at you in the middle of shows that you weren't expecting. Is there going to be a highlights package? Is there going to be some outtakes or something? I mean,
I did it at the beginning. I have. Do you know what? I'll add them on to the end of this show, Woody, because I did at the beginning for the first couple of months. Most of them are me and Alina swearing, but there are some fun. There's definitely something from Yoan Griffith in there, and I think there's some Band of Brothers stuff in there as well. I think Yoan was trying to do we had the neat little lockdown thing from him and Jamie Bamber at the end telling them to stay inside, which I loved. They were brilliant doing that. But there's a funny outtake revolving around the fact that Yoan can't do the hornblower voice unless he's got his hands behind his back and he's in the hornblower pose, which was quite funny. So I definitely get that out as well. But I think as well, this would not have worked if Alina and I didn't get on like we did.
We love each other, but we hate each other at the same time.
We do, because we can scream at each other and be fucking awful to each other, and 5 minutes later we're like, you're a dick, no, you're a dick, no, you're a dick, and then we're laughing again, which I think it's rare to find someone that you can work with like that, and that you can push as hard as you push yourself, knowing that if they snap, it's not the end.
Yeah, I mean, in my prep for this, and when I say prep, I mean 10 minutes, but no, in my prep for this, what intrigued me is, Alex, you've been on TV shows talking about the Titanic. Alina, you don't even know what a ship is, do you? So there's things where you've got a lot in common. There's other things that you're completely opposite. Your First World War, your Second World War. Alex, you're a big football fan. Alina, you don't even know what football is. So I'm patronising a bit, Alina. I don't mean it. You know what I mean?
No, she doesn't. She says she supports Arsenal because one of her mates does. So she clearly.
No, I'm a Chelsea supporter. What's wrong with you?
You are, since I told you I'd beat you up if you weren't.
Yeah, I was born in West London, darling.
That's bullying in the workplace, Alex. You're not allowed to do that.
It is, but that's what's so great about it. Who's she going to complain to? There's only me.
Yeah.
On Twitter.
So that marriage, pardon the pun, of alignment and also conflict is what makes it work. It's got that, in a sense, classic kind of double act element to it that makes it intriguing to watch. You find yourself as a listener, you're enjoying the subject, but it's also you're enjoying the banter as well. But it hasn't, and after 300 plus shows, it hasn't yet, and I don't think it ever will get any in that sort of self-indulgent way.
No, we'll never stop slagging each other off.
Is a feature of some other shows and things. It gets a little bit in-jokey, but in such a way that it becomes, if you're not part of the club, you can't get it, and you keep the in-jokes still very accessible. The down the pub thing, if you're there, to carry on that analogy, you pull a chair up for that person to join you at the table, and you make sure they're fully understanding what's going on and what all the jokes are. It's very comfortable for the viewer to feel warm by your fireside. If I'm another metaphor I'm throwing in there because I'm
full of them tonight. I think as well, the fact is we've had to learn to lighten up. We've had to learn to let things
Yeah.
go that we wouldn't usually. And one
Yeah.
thing I know, which is, I think it's been hard for me, but I think it's been harder for Alina, is the mean people, because we do, and this is why I ended up having a spat online with a load of feminists, because you're only feminists as far as it suits your own ends, some of you, because all of the worst abuse we've taken this year has been from women. So
Yeah.
I think the fact that we've just learned, I mean, so we had a horrible 1-star review from a snotty old bloke on Apple the other day. We would have cried about that at the beginning. Last week, we just read it out and down the pub and told him to F off and started again, just had a laugh and moved on. So I think thick skin has had to be deployed this year.
It's getting there. I mean, I've had a couple of turns off. I mean, I went off Twitter for a couple of months because I just couldn't take the negativity anymore. And part of it was down to my own research. You know, when you work in concentration camps and the Holocaust, you know, you get all sorts of weirdo crazies, and, you know, even your own people decide to go against you, which is just exactly what somebody really wants. There's no support there. Thanks, everyone, by the way. But, you know, Alex just sends me a message and she says, right, get your shit together, get back online. We need you to start doing some PR work. And I was like, yeah, fine, all right. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So,
well, again, I don't want to tell your listeners what to do, but people are much quicker to send in a complaint than they are give a bit of praise. And I'm in the same with what I'm doing. Is the few hurtful messages I've had, and I've had a few about what I'm doing, you know, you shouldn't be doing this, you don't have a PhD, blah, blah, blah.
Oh my God, I saw the one from one of your friends. What was that about?
Yeah, well, let's not go down that. But the point is, even though I'm a big grown up now, a one-word negative word does still sit in your head far, far more strongly than 100 positive words. And I think, again, people can do a lot for what you're doing by just, you know, spreading the word, retweeting, saying that was really good, thanks for that. I mean, I'm not telling people what to do, but it's important that people understand just how much work goes into it and just how drained you are after doing a show. And I can relate to that, because when I I end the stream after an hour and a half, I feel like I've done, 10 rounds in Mike Tyson sometimes. It's really draining, isn't it? And
dude, I can't believe what you went through to do that. There's one thing that I have to say on air, Woody, that Band of Brothers thing would never have happened without you, because you did all the legwork. They drove you mad, some of those actors, and you got everyone through it without anyone losing their shit, which was pretty phenomenal, and you did that.
Well, cheers, thank you. And then I made the mistake of saying, why don't we do a reunion of the reunion next year? But
cheers for that.
We'll see whether it happens or not. We'd get a few of them back. And there's a couple, I think, who wish they'd done it, anyway, that's another story. But, in this whole learning curve, you've gone from, not doing podcasters to, and you had to learn the software, you had to learn the uploading process, the editing process, and there's a lot of things to have to learn, and how to be nice to people, how to tease out the information from them, because some people, they have the information, but they're not as comfortable at revealing it unless you kind of extract it. Others, it's frankly shutting them up. I've had that problem with a couple of people. Peter Caddick Adams, you know who you are.
Oh, see, I let Peter talk.
He's got an episode going out in a couple of weeks, and it's like an hour and a half long. We just let him have at it.
We love you, Peter. We really do. But
I'm in the big Peter fan club. When he does a live stream with me, I'm going, it's just, you just gotta let him up, pull the pin, throw the grenade, and walk out of the room and let him go. It's just, it's extraordinary. But these are the skills you have to learn, isn't it? And it's when you watch the classic old episodes of Terry Wogan or Johnny Carson in the States, and you see them getting these amazing stories and these amazing guests, you don't notice the skill of the interviewer because you're wrapped up in what the guest is saying. But it is actually a skill to get to talk to people and have them convey things in an understandable way. And you were good when you started, and you've got better since you've been doing it. And again, that is why it will be criminal if this doesn't continue and carry on and take you to another stratosphere of success. And talking of that, you've both got these, as if you aren't stupid enough already, you've both started these side projects. Now it's like, no, I can't. 3 hours sleep is fine. I can do with 2. So, Alex, what have you been up to with your Great War stuff recently?
I got really drunk on June the 22nd or 23rd and messaged Beth, who I'd never met face to face, and went, "Do you want to start like a charity for World War One?" And she went, "Yeah." And we went, boom. And the next day we had 1,000 followers on Twitter, and we were like, damn, how are we going to make this work? And we now have 500 odd members in just, our target was that in a year, was less than that for the first year, and we've done it in 2.5 months. The magazine went down really, really well when it went out. I've got a really exciting meeting coming up with a borough in London about outreach and education with children who are special needs or victims of domestic violence in terms of history and education. We are planning a conference for May. We put it back a few weeks just to give ourselves some breathing room with this bloody virus. It's amazing. We're making our first production. We've got a drone, and I've been busy. That's all I'm going to say at the moment. But yeah, it's bonkers. Oh, and we started a project, a public research project, where literally anyone can have a go at getting their name in a book, where we are filling in the gaps for one of the lost divisional histories. We're doing the 14th Light Division. So we currently have a team of 70 people who volunteered immediately, who are transcribing war diaries, doing research, looking things up, and they've got the hashtag Team 14 Division going. We had a little Zoom thing, and actually it was just for us to tell people how to do a war diary. And what happened was it ended up being like a little social for the group, which is amazing. They're getting pin badges now, little service badges of the 14th Division badge. If people don't have the time to chip in like that, they can sponsor that project, because it's going to need its own website in the end for all the surplus information and everything. You can sponsor it by adopting, in inverted commas, one of the 10,000 odd guys that died serving with the division, and your name will be connected to his, and he gets remembered all over again, because chances are a lot of them don't have family nowadays. So yeah, that's not keeping me that busy at all, honest.
Well, okay. I mean, amazing. I mean, I haven't got enough platitudes to throw at you, frankly. But I mean, Alina, you've got something coming up as well, haven't you, to keep up with your other half?
Yeah.
I do actually, but I've got to tell you how I got to this stage actually. So a lot of my time was taken up, which Woody, actually, I should have announced this on your show, but I didn't want to because it hadn't actually been completed yet. I spent most of last year, studying for the exams to be an Auschwitz tour guide. And unfortunately, COVID hit. There was nothing the museum could do, of course, so I don't place any blame for what happened. The exams were halted. I passed the first two, went on to the third, and I passed 2 weeks ago.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you.
Alina, how far into the exam did you start crying?
10 minutes.
But she passed. She passed, and she deserved to pass, and she was always going to pass. And I had to send her multiple messages saying, stop being a dick, when she was having a meltdown beforehand about not passing, because we all knew she would.
Yeah, of course. There's no doubt. Yeah.
I need to stress that it is one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life. Everybody who's supported me, including you guys, people at the museum who have been just absolutely incredible. They all need to be thanked. Like I just said, museum staff, friends, family, everybody who's been there every step of the way. But anyway, enough about that. My new project has actually come out of that very much so. So I'm one of the oldest tour guides now. He's coming up to, 30 years? So Mirek Obstarczyk, good friend of mine, we've decided to start, wait for it, another podcast.
Okay, yes.
It is... What we're going to do, we're going to be talking about Auschwitz, but we're not going to be talking about Auschwitz, just Auschwitz. We're going to put it in the wider context. So when, for example, we're talking about, I don't know, the first transport, what was happening around the first transport? Well, obviously 14th of June, Paris gets taken. You know, what else is happening around this whole event? And we've got some amazing podcasts planned. The first one should be coming out pretty soon. So hopefully when this airs, it should be coming out. And this guy is one of the most incredibly knowledgeable people I've ever met in my life. And he's met like hundreds of survivors. So his stories are so incredible. And then there's me, obviously, on the side, kind of like goading him into doing all the talking. So.
So you're putting yourself down again. You're not on the side. You're an equal partner. That's the thing that you have. You both have these skills that you put yourself down too much, Alina. You do. I've said it there. I've said it again. You do. And, and that is why this is important, this show. And I hope this one really flies, because people need to know just how much you two put into this and how passionate you are about this subject, and the broad sense of historians, and how many people you've brought together, the community you've established on Twitter and Zoom and down the pub is important. It's been a tough year for everybody. And I feel a little bit part of what you're going on. I know lots of other people do as well. And that it's not just about the history. It's about this camaraderie and working together for a better and a better 2021, let's hope. So, on behalf of your listenership, thank you very much for what you do, because you are doing a very important job. And I really, really sincerely hope it all carries on for you indefinitely, because you deserve every success you have got, and you deserve even more.
I don't know if you've noticed yet, Woody, that neither of us can take a compliment.
Well, exactly. That's why the hell we're doing this bloody show. Well, I'm the same as it's very hard, isn't it? Because the really big stars have learned how to promote themselves.
Well, this is the thing. An American would go, "Thank you," and it wouldn't be disingenuine. But a British person feels like a dick doing that. So it's an immediate genetic reaction to go, "Oh, it's nothing."
It can all be represented by how we sing the national anthems. When you're beside an American singing they are chest out, hand on heart, and they get all the. We do it like we do hymns at funerals, don't we? Do it in that, and it doesn't mean we're not patriotic. It's just that kind of, and that's how we take.
I don't want to be the one that stands out.
Yeah, you just want to just blend in and go into this sort of this ether of just ordinariness, and that is not what we should be doing. If you've got a product that is good, you need to promote it, and you need to get people to know what you're doing. So again, people can help by the Patreon and by promoting, and let's think about someone coming over and offering some decent sponsorship and something. And it's very hard in these times, and people haven't got money to splash and things like that. But there are people, I'm sure, listening who have not thought yet about what they can do to help you. The amount of people, I mean, I'm talking about myself, but back in March, the first lockdown, and I was walking around my garden. It was your podcast I was listening to, walking around the gardens, and how much exercise I did entirely depend on how long your podcast was. And there'd be some.
Oh, you wanted Peter Caddick Adams then?
Yeah, no, you don't. That's
2 hours later.
Marathon training, isn't it? But and the thing is, and that's you are providing people with something beyond just that dry history being delivered to you. So,
I guess if you go onto Patreon or Patreon or whatever.
I don't even know how you say it. I'm part of it.
So Patreon is on Podbean. And that's their little in-house sponsorship thing. And I think, so Marcus is going to overhaul all this for us, because he's like, because I just have no headspace, and he's suggested it several times. And I'm like, if I give you all the passwords, will you just do it for me? But you can, I think it's as little as $1 a month. Like, so, or $3, there's a $3 thing on there. Patreon is its own thing. That is that's not connected to the people that put out our podcast. But, it's a similar thing. And so for like the price of one Starbucks a month, I guess if we get about 22,000, 25, 30,000 downloads a month at the moment, sometimes more when the pub goes mad. If sort of just a few of those people did £3 a month, it'll pay for it then. We'd be done.
Yeah.
We'd have better sound, and we wouldn't have to go back to go back to as much real life. I mean, I freelance. I would just do less of the other stuff and be able to keep doing History Hack, and Alina could take less students, even though she loves every single one. That
is the thing, isn't it? Is that people can actually help right now. I mean, there's some projects that need millionaires, or they need, some huge resource. As I say, as you just said, your listeners can just a couple of quid a month. A few hundred do that, you're laughing. You're on your way into a a brighter future and a more comfortable and.
Because
and,
one
and
thing we
sustainable
really
future.
don't want to do is, and I'll mention another podcast, but not in a disparaging way at all. So we have ways you have to pay to watch the live stream, or
Yeah.
there's special content that you only get if you pay, and that's fine. That's a working format, and it works for them, and that's what they do. We don't want to do that. We still want absolutely anybody who fancies listening to a bit of history to be able to get our podcast, and we've resisted doing that, partly because we're nowhere near as famous as James and Al, and everyone would tell us to fuck off. But
I need
yeah,
to add
Well,
something
I'm the
here.
same. I get, because I'm part of Patreon, I get these emails from Patreon like they're my mentor card. I don't know who these people are,
yeah.
and they all say, "Oh, hold back your best stuff for just your patrons." Like, I don't want to do that.
No,
I'm a
that's
51-year-old socialist. I mean, I'm not going to talk about my stuff now, but I am for a second. Bear with me.
we
Because
love hearing about your stuff.
One of the
Woody,
shows
it's fine.
I did back in June, which was about Omaha Beach, I had an entire class of students at a college in the USA listening to it because it was about a hero that their dormitory building is named after. Now, if I had hidden that show behind a pay-per-view thing, they would not have had access to it because they wouldn't have paid because they're students. And that is important to me as it is to you, that is, you could be broadcasting to a 15-year-old kid who has aspirations of being a historian, and they will find your history accessible in a way they perhaps wouldn't find Simon Sharma on Channel 4, whatever it would be, you know? And
He's
that's
never getting on.
important.
Oh no, sorry, it's not him. It's the other one, Starkey, that's never getting on TV.
I get those two confused up.
Yeah, I know. No, sorry,
Yeah.
Simon Schmar, that's not you. It's
No,
David Starkey that's never going to be repeated even anywhere ever again. Yeah, I think we are the Robin Hoods of history, us three, aren't we? And people like us in that it doesn't even cross our minds to want to do it that way.
But
and
the
it's
thing
not
is,
to say that way is bad. It's not.
The thing is,
but it's
there's
not
a lot.
our way.
I'm interrupting you now. There is a core group of your audience, and some of them are part of my audience as well, who don't always think that other people don't have the same financial stability they have. And I'm saying that very politely, but they're perhaps people who've got pensions from the military or whatever it would be, and they just don't realize that this is what you are earning this year. And, okay, sure, you get a few royalties and books. But as a freelance historian, I'm in the sense of freelance historian, but I'm a tour guide. I've had no work this year, so.
Yeah, what have you had? 2 tours?
I've had 7. I would normally have about 130. Mag has done
Yeah.
about 20, as you'd normally do 150. So
And she's only had more because there's a French language, right? And the people.
yeah, and she had to do them half price because they didn't want to pay. So it is what it is. But the people, again, I'm urging people listening that £2 may not be very much to them at all as a listener, but it is a huge amount to you. If you get 100 or 200 versions of that coming in a month, it just gives you the stability and it gives you the confidence. It proves that it makes you feel good, and it proves that what you're doing has value. And I think we all could do with a bit more of that to just urge us to keep on going. Because again, I'm going to stress to the listeners, you're even when I'm trying to tease it out of you, you're still playing down how little you. Oh well, we do it for a week, a month, and then you're putting shitloads of time, because it's not just the time you're doing consciously. It's the time you're doing the promotion on Twitter. It's the time you're just chatting amongst each other. That's all part of the job. When you're whinging each other on telephone, that is job that you should be being paid for in a sense, So
as an indication, we probably worked 90 hours last week, didn't we? In one of the recording weeks. Do you reckon?
Guys, there's one thing we're talking about that you've totally forgotten to mention.
What?
Right. Everybody who's downloading our shit, get on YouTube. Okay,
and subscribe, yes.
Not just to us, subscribe to Woody, World War II TV.
Because it makes a difference, because the more, so we have 420, we don't get any money from YouTube until there are 1,000 people. So even if you hardly ever go on YouTube, put your account on and subscribe to, because then without doing anything.
Subscribe, click notifications, and like every show you listen to.
Yeah.
Because then people get paid without you parting with any money. Yeah. That's how it works.
I'm not like you. I do less shows, but I'm going to be doing my 100th live stream on Saturday, and I have got nearly 4,000 subscribers on YouTube because I started a year and a half ago, and I have nearly earned $75 in all that time as advertising. So the drinks are on me, girls. That's for how many tens of thousands of hours of combined viewing. I have got a whole $75.
It's kind of a taboo thing, because I guarantee as soon as you put out a Patreon request or something like that, someone will come back and go, that's a bit tacky. And you just think, it's the reality that nobody talks about. All of this content-driven stuff is that the content now everyone expects for free has got a monetary value for the people that are putting it together, and they need money just like you do. Would you go to work and do it for free? We chose to do this. We chose to do it in a weird time when we literally weren't allowed out of the house to do anything else. But like real life is coming back, so yeah, it has to be a viable business proposition. It doesn't have to make us
emails
rich.
I get and the comments I get, you're being a bit commercial, begging for I'm not begging, I'm saying that this is a harsh reality.
I'm asking if you enjoy it to contribute.
I made this. I'm getting more from Patreon than perhaps other people. I mean, I had a big chat with the guy who runs the Great War Day by Day YouTube show, and he's been running since 2014. And we talked. In fact, you came up in the conversation as well, and we talked about my show and your show. And he said you are doing as well as anyone could possibly be doing within a first year of starting something. He says the curve will not begin to climb until you've been doing it for at least a year. But it makes sense, because your YouTube and your podcast channels and these people start them and they carry on for a bit, and then they realize how much work it is, and they stop just before it starts building because they're fed up with putting the hours in. And so the YouTube and the Podbeam, all those algorithms, they won't kind of kick in till you've been at it for a year. They want to know that you're in it for the long run, because they're not going to. I mean, I'm saying they as if it's people. It's actually just.
It's all just computers, isn't it?
But they want to know that you're going to be going beyond just a few months. And I'm looking at YouTube channels that have stopped making content 8 and 9 years ago, and they stopped when they had 200 views, and now they've got 20,000 because they have finally been found, but now they're not making any new content. So it is important to kind of set your sights on this being a long-term adventure. And keep on going with it. But the point is, you still have to pay the bills while you're in the short term. You can't just wait for the long term to kick in. You've got to put food on the table tomorrow. But
to be honest, guys, I mean, there were so many times, and Alex can vouch for this, where I've turned around and gone, I just want to fucking give up. I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I've had enough. Let's pack it in. And Alex was like, it's
Don't
working.
be a dick.
Suck it up.
My answer to her whenever she has a meltdown is don't be a dick.
Just suck it up. But we're here. We're moving forward. There's so much stuff. There's so many plans that we have that obviously we don't want to spoil everything now. But, hopefully COVID will go at some stage and we'll be able to move forward into other avenues, which would be absolutely amazing, where Alex and I can actually spend time together face to face.
Oh, no, really?
Oh, God, absolutely lovely, Mum.
I mean,
do you know what, though? I did see her. So, when it all kind of relaxed a bit in the summer and she was over, we saw each other, we met, and we both got weepy. We had a hug and we got all weepy. We were like, oh my God, it's been so emotional.
I've just vomited.
I know. It was like, we worked so hard and I'm not even seeing your face. And then we had a drink and we were normal again. So, yeah, it's fine.
Well, that's good.
I don't think I've hugged someone so hard ever in my life. And it was just like, this moment where we saw each other from the end of the train station and we kind of like pranced.
It was like that bit in Gone with the Wind where Ashley comes home and Melly goes bounding across the platform.
I'm thinking about the railway children myself, but the same thing. Yeah,
it was
it's the same.
Epically sad and tragic.
To be honest, I do wish that, I lived in the UK. I'd see Alex a bit more often and laugh at her after she had tooth surgery. And then
do you know, this is how weird we are, Woody. We had surgery on exactly the same tooth. In her in Poland, me in England. The exact same surgery on the exact same tooth 2 weeks apart.
Her face swelled up and mine didn't.
Because your face always looks like that. That's nice.
Nice. Yes.
Cool.
She hated me.
And this is going to end up being the show that was designed to pull you together and push you forward, where you actually break up live on air. That's going to be.
Man, she already said to me, like, I said, we've already agreed. Like, if one tries to quit, the other one's just going to stalk them.
Yeah.
Try and run, Alina. Try it. I will find
come
you.
To Poland.
I will find you.
Alex and I have got the best ever plan to get old together, and it beats every plan out of the bloody window.
Do you remember the Waltons?
Yeah.
Do you remember the two old ladies?
Oh yes.
Brewing hooch.
Were they a couple? I can't remember.
Sisters. They were brewing hooch. And Alina, tell everyone what we're going to do with our hooch, where we're going to sit and what we're going to do.
So we're going to have a porch, okay, and we're going to sit drinking our hooch. Well, Alex will have gin, I'll have vodka, because clearly I'm not crossing over that boundary.
No.
I've got to stick with my own stuff here. And we're going to have lots of animals. Do not forget the animals, people. You know, like hundreds of cats and dogs and maybe some birds. No, I hate birds. No birds. And then we're going to have like super soakers, and anybody that comes near us or is annoying.
We're going to sit on the porch abusing everyone who goes past and shooting at them with big water guns.
Yeah.
Because once we're in our 80s, he's going to tell us we're not allowed. Really.
Exactly. Do what we want.
It's been great talking to you, and I could talk to you all again. But I mean, anything else that you think you should? I can tease out of you that you should really wish you'd get people to know that about the effort you're putting in or how they can help. I mean, I think I've asked all the things I wanted to ask, but I mean, you know, now's the opportunity, girls. You know, what can be done to push you forward? What other wonderful thing could happen to push this onto another stage?
I have something, but you might vomit.
A TV documentary.
Are you going to propose to her live on this?
Going to turn it down.
No, I just look. I want to be straight. Alex has been there for me no matter what. However hard the times have been, and they've been sometimes incredibly hard on both of us. We've had our own problems, and other things have happened in our lives. But we've been there for each other at the end of the day, and we have gone through some serious shit. And I think the next test is going to be our January recordings, to which she already hates me for what I've lined 35 up in a week.
Yeah.
Because I've got the whole week off, so from work. But
she's even done the Saturday. I was like, what are you doing?
Well, we need to get ahead of ourselves, unfortunately. But no, I want to say thank you to everybody who supported us, and I want to say thank you to Alex for being there for me, no matter what, through the love, the hate, and everything in between. So
yeah, you're a dick, but I love you. And I also have to say as well that we've left it this late to say that this program would be absolutely nothing if not for hundreds of very smart, bright, intelligent, eloquent people who have just given the contents of their head for free as well and come on. And we've been turned down by precisely 2 people since we started doing this, and neither of them are famous. They're not people you'd expect. Oh, and
it's becoming a thing now, isn't it?
And Rowan Atkinson.
You've got a book out.
But even his agent was lovely. She said he doesn't like doing interviews, just full stop. We did try to do a Blackadder one. She just said, Mr. Atkinson says he really doesn't like doing interviews, and he's never done a podcast. It's not something I could get him to do. Even then, she politely said, no, it wasn't mean. So yeah, we've only been meanly turned down by 2 people since we started this. And so if all those people weren't out there ready to talk and share their knowledge, and like the pub people that come back every week, I mean, it's something like Holmes works full time from home at the moment. But so some of those people, their jobs aren't furloughed, and they are working, and yet they turn up every week. And the prep that they do, some of them, for each program. I mean, this isn't James who just reads a computer game plan. If you hear this, James, I'm never going to let you forget that. But some of them spend hours getting ready for that pub show, and they've gone weekly again since the lockdowns got worse again. So if those people weren't as generous as they have been all the way through this, then History Hack would just be me and Alina moaning at each other, and that would not be fun.
Well, that is the thing, isn't it? You're only as good as your next show, and if people say start saying no, or people stop writing books or investigating subjects or doing PhDs, it can all kind of end tomorrow. I mean, it's not going to, because you've got a huge market, because history is everything that happened prior to today, isn't it? So there's a lot of subjects to tap. But, you know, you can't rest on your laurels. There's nothing, you can't just say, well, we've got this back catalogue. You know, you've got to keep on going. There's no Sgt. Pepper album. Let's do that now. Let's move on and leave it at that. You've got to keep on going. So it's been great talking to you. And can I close it as well? Can I?
Yeah, this is your show, Woody.
So this is Paul Woodadge for History Hack. I've just said it again. This is a History Hack. This is Paul Woodadge for History Hack. This is Paul Woodadge saying thank you very much for listening to History Hack, where the spotlight has been turned on the creators, not the providers. Does that sound good? I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that was good. Yeah. No, thank you very much. I'm sure people will enjoy listening to this and understanding a little bit more about the effort you put in, and hopefully people will think about more ways they can give you some of the love back. I'll leave it at that.